Welcome to Iraqi Dinar News, where you receive real and authentic updates about the Iraqi dinar. If you want to stay informed with moment-by-moment developments, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Today we are taking a deeper analytical look at the latest discussions surrounding Iraq's economic transformation, the modernization efforts connected to the banking sector, and the growing attention on how these developments could influence the long-term outlook for the Iraqi dinar. Over the past several years, there has been no shortage of headlines, rumors, speculation, and emotional reactions connected to Iraq's currency and financial future. However, what separates serious economic analysis from online hype is the ability to focus on measurable developments, documented reforms, institutional reports, and structural economic changes that can actually be verified over time. The latest information being discussed centers around what many analysts describe as a highly complex financial transition taking place inside Iraq. According to observers following the country's economic progress, the data collected over recent years paints a picture that is far more detailed and interconnected than many people initially believed. This is not simply about exchange rates or daily currency fluctuations. Instead, it involves a broader transformation tied to Iraq's banking infrastructure, government systems, international trade mechanisms, customs modernization, digital payment expansion, and compliance with global financial standards. One of the most important points highlighted in this discussion is the emphasis on raw data rather than emotional speculation. For years, the Iraqi dinar community has often been divided between those who rely on rumors and those who focus on documented economic indicators. The newer perspective emerging from analysts is that Iraq's economic reconstruction must be understood through verified institutional progress. That includes reports from the Central Bank of Iraq, commonly known as the CBI, reviews conducted by international financial organizations, and visible reforms taking place across Iraq's administrative and financial systems. When examining Iraq's economic rebuild over the last 3 years in particular, there are several developments that continue to stand out. First, Iraq has increasingly focused on strengthening transparency within its banking sector. International financial institutions have consistently encouraged Iraq to modernize its banking environment, reduce dependency on cash transactions, improve anti-money laundering controls, and create systems that align more closely with global banking expectations. These reforms are not quick fixes. They are long-term structural adjustments designed to stabilize Iraq's financial credibility over time. For followers of the Iraqi dinar, this matters because currency stability is not created by announcements alone. A stronger and more internationally trusted currency environment typically depends on confidence in the country's institutions. Investors, trading partners, and international banks pay close attention to whether a nation can manage secure transactions, maintain financial oversight, combat corruption, and implement modern banking technologies. Iraq's challenge for many years was that its financial infrastructure lagged behind modern international standards due to decades of conflict, sanctions, political instability, and institutional inefficiencies. Now, according to recent observations, Iraq appears to be accelerating efforts to modernize those systems. One major topic gaining attention is the expansion of digital overhauls throughout government and financial operations. Digital transformation is becoming a key pillar of Iraq's broader economic strategy. This includes the growth of electronic payment systems, digital banking platforms, and electronic government services. In practical terms, these reforms are intended to reduce reliance on paper-based bureaucracy, improve accountability, increase transaction speed, and limit opportunities for corruption or financial leakage. The rise of e-government initiatives is another significant development mentioned in the recent analysis. E-government refers to the use of digital technology to provide government services, manage records, process transactions, and improve communication between citizens and institutions. For Iraq, this shift represents more than technological modernization. It also reflects an attempt to improve state efficiency and rebuild public trust in administrative systems. Countries that successfully implement digital governance often experience improvements in tax collection, customs management, licensing procedures, and financial transparency. For Iraqi Dinar followers, these reforms could have indirect but meaningful implications. A more efficient government system can improve economic productivity and reduce operational losses within public institutions. Over time, stronger economic management can support broader monetary stability. However, it is important to emphasize that these developments do not automatically translate into immediate or dramatic changes in the currency's international value. Economic modernization is usually gradual and measured over years rather than days or weeks. Another important area mentioned is the implementation of ASICA systems. ASICA, which stands for Automated System for Customs Data, is a customs management platform used in many countries to streamline trade processes and improve customs efficiency. For Iraq, integrating systems like ASWICUA could significantly impact trade transparency, customs revenue collection, and border operations. Efficient customs systems are critical for any developing economy because they reduce delays, combat smuggling, improve import-export monitoring, and strengthen government revenue streams. Iraq's economy remains heavily dependent on oil exports, but policymakers have repeatedly stated that economic diversification is essential for long-term stability. Improving customs systems and trade infrastructure is part of that larger diversification effort. If Iraq can create a more organized and transparent trade environment, it may attract greater international commercial participation over time. Increased trade activity and stronger financial oversight can contribute to economic resilience, especially during periods of oil price volatility. The mention of tokenized commodities is another area that has generated curiosity among economic observers. Tokenization generally refers to the use of digital blockchain-based systems to represent ownership or value tied to physical assets or commodities. Around the world, financial systems are increasingly experimenting with blockchain technologies, digital assets, and tokenized financial instruments. While these concepts remain complex and are still developing globally, the fact that Iraq is being discussed within this broader modernization conversation signals that the country is attempting to position itself within emerging financial technologies rather than remaining isolated from them. However, it is very important to separate realistic analysis from exaggerated interpretations. The adoption of digital systems or financial technologies does not mean Iraq is about to suddenly transform overnight into a dominant global financial center. What it does suggest is that Iraq recognizes the direction modern financial systems are moving toward and is attempting to gradually align with international trends. For a country rebuilding its economy after decades of disruption, even incremental progress in these areas can be significant. The phrase, New World Financial Order, has also attracted attention in discussions surrounding these reforms. From a professional financial analysis perspective, this phrase should not be interpreted as a conspiracy theory or secretive global event. Instead, it can be understood more practically as a reference to the global transition toward digital finance, interconnected banking systems, automated compliance standards, electronic trade infrastructure, and evolving payment technologies. Many countries, not just Iraq, are adapting to this shift. In Iraq's case, participation in this evolving financial environment could improve international confidence in the country's economic systems. Confidence is one of the most important factors in currency stability. A nation that demonstrates stronger institutional reliability, better compliance standards, and improved financial transparencies may gradually build greater credibility with international markets and investors. The role of the Central Bank of Iraq remains central to this entire conversation. Over recent years, the CBI has continued implementing reforms aimed at stabilizing the Iraqi banking system and managing monetary policy more effectively. The bank has focused on controlling inflationary pressures, managing foreign currency reserves, regulating dollar transactions, and encouraging digital payment adoption. Iraq has also worked to strengthen its relationship with international financial institutions to ensure compliance with global banking regulations. At the same time, Iraq continues facing significant challenges. Corruption concerns, political instability, infrastructure gaps, unemployment pressures, and dependence on oil revenues remain major obstacles. These realities are important because balanced financial analysis requires acknowledging both progress and risk factors. Some online discussions about the Iraqi dinar focus exclusively on optimistic scenarios, while ignoring structural difficulties. Serious economic analysis must recognize that Iraq's recovery process is uneven and still developing. In the short term, the modernization efforts currently underway may contribute to greater efficiency and stability within Iraq's financial system. Expanded digital payments could reduce cash dependency and improve transaction monitoring. Improved customs management could strengthen state revenue collection. Better banking compliance could increase international cooperation with Iraqi financial institutions. These are meaningful developments that can support gradual economic strengthening. However, short-term expectations regarding major currency shifts should remain realistic. Exchange rate policy is influenced by many factors, including foreign reserves, inflation control, trade balances, government spending, oil revenues, and broader economic confidence. Structural reforms alone do not guarantee rapid currency appreciation. Instead, they create the foundation for a more sustainable financial environment over the long run. Long-term implications are where many analysts believe the real significance lies. If Iraq successfully continues its modernization trajectory, diversifies portions of its economy, improves governance standards, expands non-oil revenue streams, and strengthens banking credibility, then the country could place itself in a much stronger economic position over the next decade. A more stable and efficient economy can support stronger monetary management and potentially improve international confidence in the Iraqi dinar over time. Another critical factor is Iraq's young population and growing domestic market. Iraq possesses significant human capital potential. Digital reforms, financial modernization, and infrastructure improvements could create new economic opportunities for younger generations. Increased private sector activity and entrepreneurship could eventually reduce the country's reliance on public sector employment. Economic diversification remains difficult, but modernization initiatives can create the conditions needed for broader development. Regional integration also matters. Iraq's strategic location places it at an important crossroads for trade and energy routes connecting the Middle East, Asia, and Europe. If Iraq can improve logistics systems, customs operations, transportation infrastructure, and financial transparency, the country could benefit from increased regional trade participation. These developments would strengthen overall economic activity and could contribute to greater financial stability over time. The international community continues monitoring Iraq's reforms closely. Organizations such as the International Monetary Fund and global financial partners often evaluate Iraq's progress in areas including fiscal management, banking reforms, anti-corruption efforts, and regulatory compliance. Positive reviews from international institutions can improve investor confidence and support broader economic engagement. However, continued progress is essential because international credibility depends on consistent implementation rather than isolated announcements. One reason why many observers are now paying closer attention is because the reforms appear increasingly interconnected. In earlier years, Iraq's reforms often seemed fragmented or slow-moving. More recently, analysts have noted that banking modernization, customs digitization, e-government expansion, and payment system upgrades are beginning to align as part of a larger economic transformation strategy. That interconnected approach is important because modern economies depend on integrated systems rather than isolated reforms. Still, caution remains necessary. Economic rebuilding is rarely linear. Iraq has experienced setbacks before, and external factors such as global oil prices, geopolitical tensions, security conditions, and political disputes can influence economic momentum. Even well-designed reforms can face implementation challenges. Therefore, responsible analysis requires patience and careful observation, rather than emotional reactions to every headline or rumor. For Iraqi Dinar followers specifically, the key takeaway from the latest developments is not the promise of sudden wealth or guaranteed outcomes. Instead, the focus should be on understanding the broader structural direction Iraq appears to be moving toward. Financial modernization, digital infrastructure, banking reforms, and institutional transparency are all components of long-term economic strengthening. These developments are meaningful because they indicate that Iraq is attempting to rebuild its financial systems according to modern international standards. At the same time, responsible viewers should avoid interpreting every reform as immediate evidence of dramatic currency revaluation scenarios. Currency policy decisions are highly complex and involve careful coordination between economic growth, inflation management, reserve protection, trade considerations, and monetary stability. Sustainable economic progress is typically measured over extended periods rather than instant market reactions. The broader lesson here is that Iraq's economic story is evolving beyond simplistic narratives. The country's future is increasingly tied to technology integration, institutional modernization, and participation in a rapidly changing global financial environment. Digital payments, automated customs systems, tokenized financial experiments, and e-government services are not isolated concepts. Together, they represent an attempt to move Iraq into a more modern economic framework capable of supporting long-term development. Whether Iraq can fully achieve these ambitions will depend on consistent policy execution, political stability, infrastructure investment, and continued institutional reform. There is still substantial work ahead, and challenges remain significant. But, from an analytical perspective, the recent data and observable reforms suggest that Iraq's economic transition is becoming more visible, more measurable, and more connected than in previous years. For viewers following the Iraqi Dinar, the most responsible approach is to stay informed through credible economic data, institutional reports, and verified developments rather than emotional speculation. Watching how Iraq manages digital transformation, banking modernization, customs reform, and international financial integration over the coming years will likely provide more meaningful insight than short-term rumors circulating online. As always, the Iraqi Dinar story is ultimately connected to the broader health of Iraq's economy. A stronger economy, supported by modern financial systems, efficient governance, diversified revenues, and stable institutions creates a more supportive environment for long-term monetary stability. While no outcome is guaranteed, the ongoing reforms do represent an important chapter in Iraq's continuing economic rebuilding process. Thank you for watching Iraqi Dinar News. If you appreciate responsible, factual, and balanced updates about Iraq's economy and the Iraqi Dinar, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video so you never miss future developments. And as always, this content is provided for informational and educational purposes only, and should not be considered financial advice or investment guidance.